Hello everybody, and welcome to the IMSE Spring 2024 Capstone Project. I am joined by Harrison Cook, Joey Hadding, and Matthew Lakota, and we were assigned with the problem, which was to reduce incompletes by 50% of metal cabinets in the production system.
So our objectives were to reduce the errors in the welding machine, to update the standard of work to better workflow and reduce our issues, and improve data collection for future improvements for other groups in the future, and decrease incompletes by 50%. During our current state analysis, it was identified that drawer assemblies in the metal cabinets were the largest error issue, but this was not able to be tackled in the amount of time that our group had during this project, so we moved on to weld defects because that was the second largest error. This is a video of our skid welder welding pieces for those metal cabinets, and as you can see, when the welder clamps down onto these long skids, the weld nuts on the far side of the piece jump in place.
For approaching solutions, there were three main issues that we focused on. The first and main issue was the weld machine issues. From here, we found that there were multiple pneumatic leakages, and after fixing those and changing the pneumatic flow speeds, we were able to fix the main issue. From there, we also looked at work standards, and after talking to the employees and verifying the current standards, we were able to modify the work standards to more reflect what the current process is. And lastly is the assembly data entry, which is a recommendation to implement a dropdown that will allow us to collect more data on the errors within the assembly for future fixes.
And then we had a data comparison from before and after our changes were implemented. This shows before and this shows after. And as you can see, the error percentage was much higher before. These were measurements of when something was welded misaligned or when they had to be adjusted by the operator before being welded to make sure that they weren't welded misaligned. And this showed a variety of different types of builds, showing that it wasn't one piece that was the problem, it was a bunch of problems all over. And this was again reflected in our collection after, where we looked at different types. And as you can see, this build 5 was in both before and after. It was at 25%, and it went down to 0% error percentage. And this is also showing that the visuals were changed, as these had parts jumping every single time or 50% of the time. Whereas when we looked after, parts were not jumping at all. There was no movement in the part. And then for the ROI and impact, there were three different impacts that we had. We had the updated of maintenance with the machine. We had the standard work, which had steps that were no longer used or relevant, which we took out and updated and put in a more visible spot. And we had the sheet to check in the parts and adding that drop down menu for it so that workers could track data better. And this cost saved, so the implementation of the solution cost a total of $86.55 in parts and labor. And then using the data collected from 2023, there were 1,606 weld errors. And then 50% of these weld errors are suggested to be, or estimated to be, from this machine, which this rework would cost for 803 skids would be $11,210. And then we estimated that about 480 skids were destroyed during that year, which cost 4,272. And this totals out to $15,395 saved per year. And the impact that this also had was the displacement from the machine was eliminated. So no longer would people be waiting on this machine with the problems that were going on. The operator's supervision and variation was minimized, so we noticed that the operator would be working on multiple machines, which could cause problems. And it also included a variable of training for each operator. Some were more trained than others. And then the data collection for future trend identification. So this showed that with this drop-down menu, they'd be able to look at it in the future and identify trends more accurately with more data collected. And thank you for listening to our presentation.